Hey, what's up? This is TJ. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to have some fun. We're going to look at the groove synthesis third wave versus the Waldorf quantum MKII. I hope to help make you a decision about which one is best for you. We're going to do a lot of different sound samples. We're going to dive in a little bit, do a little bit of programming in each one so you can see the workflow that is involved. And then I'm going to give you some pros and cons of what I think of each one of these so you can get a better idea. Again, which is best for you. If you like what I'm doing here on this channel, you've got to subscribe and check out tjontheroad.com. Now, the most important thing about these is how do they sound, right? So I've prepared a little multi-track clip for you to hear with both of them in it. Let's roll it. What is the differences of these synths and what they have in common, right? So let's talk about what they have in common first, okay? Obviously, they're two rather expensive boutique type synthesizers. They're both blue. I love the blue. They're 61 keys a piece, okay? And they have digital architecture with analog filters. After that, things start to go way, way, way apart, okay? So let's take a look first at the groove synthesis, right? This synth here is really intended to be the next generation of the PPG. That's why it's called the third wave, right? That's what it was originally designed for, and it absolutely excels at that. Now, it does a lot of other things too. It does great, virtual analog VA, type of synthesis, has a whole, set of waveforms to do that, does it very, very, very well. So I like to call this a character synth. On the other hand, the quantum, okay, it is a chameleon kind of synth, and that means that, it can do so many different things. It not only does the same type, wavetable type synthesis that the groove synthesis does, and it does the virtual analog synthesis, but it also has three other synthesis engines. It has sampling, and that sampling can also do granular synthesis. Very cool, right? It also does what's called a resonator synthesis, or resonator engine that it has in there. That is physical modeling. And lastly, it does what they have is a kernel synthesis. Now, the simplest thing to think about with that is that it can be used for FM style synthesis, like the classic DX7. But it can do much, much more. You can also look at it as a modular synthesizer, a powerful polyphonic modular synthesizer like what I've had behind me here. And it can do a lot of things in that way. All right, so there are, quite a bit of differences between the two. Now, the other physical differences between the two are, for example, this is a little bit larger in terms of its depth, just in terms of size, right? They're about the same width, wide. And the other large differences is that even though they both have, FITAR keyboards, the Quantum, okay, has polyphonic aftertouch. That's meaning the MK2 to MK1 did not have the polyphonic aftertouch. The Groove Synthesis does not have the polyphonic FITAR keyboard. So some differences. If you like polyphonic aftertouch, I love it. Is something that may be important for you. So I'm going to take a little bit of a deep dive between the two. Maybe not too deep. I've already created some videos here on this channel. Make sure you check them out. Deep dives for the Groove Synthesis and a deep dive for the Waldorf sister, desktop model, which is the Iridium. So check those out. But I'm going to take a little bit of we'll call it a medium dive between the two so you can see the differences and we can look at the workflow between them. Let's get started. We're going to first take a look at the third wave. So let's dive in, right? Third wave, okay. Let's take a look starting with the oscillators, right? You got 3 oscillators, okay? And these oscillators are capable of wavetables. They're capable of VA synthesis. There's also capable of, basic FM kind of synthesis, okay? Some basic FM. That's pretty much, right? And their focus is on the PPG, type sounds that you're going to get. That's mostly with the wavetables. You can load in your own wavetables with this. Let's, show you that part. I did a video earlier in depth on that, but I'll go over it real quickly. Let's take a look at the wavetables that are available, right? So you have here in the display, the first set of wavetables are the PPG type. All right. And if you just scroll through those, you got all the original wavetables going up to from 0 to 33, so that's 34 wavetables in TechSpeak, right? 0 to 33. Then you have some user wavetables, right? And there are ones that are already installed from the factory. All right, and there's a bunch of those, and you can add your own too. So I'll skip through those real quick. I've added some of my own. There's more room. I can't remember off the top of my head how many user wavetables that are available. I'll put that in the description. And then you scan all the way up here, and these are the waveforms that are available. You've got sawtooth, square, triangle, sine, super saw. And then you have different noise types. All right? And that's called the Wavetable Maker. That's a tool that you use when you want to make your own wavetables, as I've shown in the prior video that I have posted here on this channel. All right, so you have quite a selection. If you go to, say, the regular waveforms, the sawtooth, sine, square wave, that type of stuff, you can use those for VA synthesis. If you go to the user wavetables, you can get high quality, very high quality user wavetables. If you go to the PPG wavetables, you're going to be getting those classic, 8-bit style wavetables that were originally in the PPG. So you have 3 oscillators. Each one is capable of doing that. If you choose one of the wavetables, though, you get to also use the wave envelopes. So let's take a look at that. All right, I activate that for oscillator 1, and you'll see here it has a 6-stage wave envelope. And you can edit that using these positions. The first 3 are represented by their time, all right, how long it takes to get to the first position, and its destination, that being how far into the wavetable that it goes. All right, and you do that with all these different ones, okay? And then when you want to get to the remaining 3, that being 4, 5, and 6, you got to push this button, Okay, and then they change over to 4, 5, and 6. One of the little quirks with third wave that I hope to have an option to change, I did request this as a feature request, is I kind of would like to see that these being just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then the button, instead of it changing it from the stages of the envelope from from 1 to 3 to 4 to 6, you can change the button changing it from the time and the position. So this always is the time and or position, depending on the button location and so forth. So hopefully they implement that. I would really appreciate that. And that's pretty easy the way it looks, right? You have a basic, look at that. There is no graphic representation of what stage it is at the wavetable, so you have to, just use your ears. My God, people still use your ears. Yes, they do. All right, moving on. Our next section here is each one has an individual mix, right? An individual level. With the third wave, the way it works is that if each of these added all together is greater than 100, you got to do a little math there. If it's greater than 100, you start to get a little bit of saturation in the mixer. If you don't want that, you want to keep all the levels of each individual oscillator below 100. And that feeds into our filters here. Now, our filters are two different types. There's a state variable filter. That is a digital filter. They are in series. So the state variable filter feeds into the low pass filter. That is an analog filter. So again, you got the oscillators that feed into the mixers. These are the levels for the mixer. That feeds into the state variable filter. That is a digital filter. Then it goes into this analog low pass filter. All right, so very, very flexible. The state variable filter has low pass, high pass, obviously. It has a notch, and it has a band pass mode. They can turn on and off here. So that's also very cool. There are 4 different LFOs, low frequency oscillators, available that you can route anywhere. All right, and there are 4 different envelopes. You have one dedicated to the filter, one dedicated to the amp, and then these 2 extra modulation ones. You can, if you want to, use the wave envelopes also as additional envelopes, so you can potentially have these 4 plus the additional 3 there to assign as sources for different destinations. So it's very, very powerful stuff. A few other things here. You have your modulation section here. Let's take a look at that. All right, you have all these different modulation slots. If you go to the bottom here, these are the fixed ones. By fixed, what they mean is that if you set a modulation from the individual modules, say the low frequency oscillators or from the envelopes, you'll see them showing up here. Or you can come up to the top, and these are variable. You can choose any source and any destination in there. So what is it? You got 1. You got 6 variable sources, all right, and I believe you have the same amount in fixed sources. So a lot of good choices in terms of, modulations, destinations in terms of that. All right, now up here, you might be wondering what this knob is for. It's called the Wave Surfer, right? This allows you to surf through all of the different wavetables. Now this given sound only has one wavetable being used, so you can surf through it. All right, so that allows you to go through the different offset that's here. Let's take a look at this. Let's see the waves, right? So this is the offsets. This is the wavetable as it's represented. There's no 3D, it's just a 2D look. And you can see the different waves that are available in the wavetables. So that's cool. The Wave Surfer will surf through those. So one thing about, if you've noticed with third wave, it doesn't always have the graphical representations that we're going to see with the Quantum. But there's plenty here, to know where you are and what you're going, and the screen is really, really nice. It is not a touch screen though. Got to use all the buttons. All right, moving on here, it does have an awesome sequencer. Okay, let's put the sequencer on here. It allows you to designate the patterns, buttons, and so forth. okay? You can do quantization either as you record or after the fact. There is no other real kind of editing though, however. If you make a mistake, you're going to have to do it again. You can do sequencing for each one of the 4 layers. It is 4-part multi-timbral. Okay, so you can get up to that, and it is polyphonic sequencing. The other really powerful part of the sequencer also is you can sequence every parameter on here, and there is no known limit. They haven't published any, and I haven't really found out there is one, right? And it'll even remember the button pushes and all the things that you do, right? So that's really, really awesome. You can sequence that. Remember, though, you have one chance to record it. If you like it, great. Otherwise, you have to re-record it. What else? Okay, we've got the pan spread here, and then you have an effects section. There's 2 sets of effects. Generally, they are available for each one of the layers. There is some DSP limitations, though. Obviously, you're not going to use a lot of delay on both of them. You probably won't get it, all of them to work, but you can get a lot of it to go here. So there are different types here. I'll just go through the types here. You got the, over here, that's the bypass. There's a bucket break delay, BBD delay, stereo delay, chorus, oops, phaser, flanger, there's distortion. There's a nice sounding Leslie speaker. There's ring mod, very, very cool. All right, and that's it for the first one here. The first one. Then the effect number 2, which is in series to effect number 1. All right. You have some same effects and some different ones. You have the bypass here, you have the BBD delay, and then you have the stereo delay. Then you also have a tape delay, the Echoplex. That sounds really, really nice. You have the same kind of chorus, same phaser, flanger, distortion, Leslie, and ring mod. You have a room simulation here, and a concert hall similarly to the other one. And then there's the super plate, right? That's also in here. So there are all kinds of different types with the third wave. So you can see that the third wave is much more hands-on too. I think that's one of the other things that I like about it. Everything's here, right here in front of you, okay? In terms of, quirks of using it, the only thing I would say is, again, I wish they had a different setup for the wave envelopes. And the other thing, in order to go to different module sections, you have to hold the compare button, okay? And say twist a knob or something like that here to find out where you are, right? So if I wanted to find out, like I just did the wave offset here, I got to twist this and come over here, right? And it's going to give me oscillator 2, but it didn't actually give me the wave offset. I got to go over here and find it, or I have to find out the FM amount. I got a number of button pushes to get where I want it to go. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So there's no back button or exit button or anything like that from the screen that you are in to where you were before. So these are little quirks with third wave that you have to just keep in mind as you're going through the workflow. All right, we're going to take a look at the Quantum and show you the different modules in that, and again, similarly, the controls and so forth. Let's do that. All right, well, here we have the Quantum MKII. Again, I'm going to start out with the oscillators, and we'll just go through the synth really, really quickly so you can get an idea of what we're working with here, right? So you have, again, 3 oscillators, similar to the third wave, right? You can access them in different ways, though, than you can with third wave. You can access these up here, select them, okay, different types. All right, this particular one has the oscillator with the wavetable. There is the waveform oscillator, and there's the kernel engine here. You can select the different types in a couple of different ways. You can either come up here. It has a touch screen, very, very cool. You can select those here, or you can actually select them over here. Now, one of the weird things I think with this, particularly the MKII version of the Quantum, is you'll have here 4 different types, right? Well, there's 5 different types here, right? There's the waveform, wavetable, waveform, particle, resonator, and kernel. Where's the kernel over here, right? Well, if you don't know, you've got to push these 2 buttons here, that being the wavetable and the waveform, in order to get the kernel oscillator. Now, on the original Quantum, okay, that wasn't in there. That was something that they added on with a firmware upgrade. So I can see why why that wasn't marked on there, right? But it's not marked on the MKII version. I thought that was a little bit odd. It is marked on the Iridium like that, so a little bit of an oddity there. In any event, okay, let's go back to the original one that I have here. If I wanted to load this back in, I can just hit load. You can see it has a nice list here. I can either scroll up and down. This is something that I wish Third Wave did have. It doesn't really have a preset list, so you just have to dial through the presets. You can scroll up and down through that. Pick the one you want. You can either hit load or you can just push the encoder and it loads it in. All right, oscillator 1 here, we have the wavetable oscillator. You have controls over here for some of those controls, and you have controls over here, right? You can select the wavetables from here, all the different types. You can use user wavetables if you want to, so you can load those in. There's a lot of memory on here for that. Probably nearly infinite amount. You can go to town on that if you want to, but there are a lot of really great, you know, all high quality factory wavetables in there. Lots of great stuff. All right, and see, that's the slot for the user one. There's none here that I have loaded right now in this one, so it just comes up blank. Okay, let's load back this again. There we go. All right, so that's the first type of oscillator that's available. All right, and in oscillator 2, I just happen to have also the waveform oscillator. Okay, and you have all different shapes. This is the sine wave. All right, there's the sawtooth, sine, triangle, square, and noise types. There's also 4 different noises: pink, white, pings, and Geiger. Okay, so there's all different types of noise types. You have the sine, you have the ability to have a number of kernels, that being repetitions of those given waveforms. You can detune them within the oscillator. Very, very powerful. You can do a synchronization within the oscillator. You can warp the oscillator waveform, change the shape. You can set up modulations to do this. Incredibly powerful stuff. All right, if you're interested in more deep dives of this, I would suggest that you take a look at my 9 video series of the Iridium. Nearly almost everything is the same, with the exception of some firmware upgrades, and obviously the Quantum has a couple extra things on it that I'll go through today. Then you also have, over and above what the Third Wave has, you have a couple other ones, oscillator types. You have, for example, the particle. The particle is basically sampling. You can load samples into that. You do that by actions. You want to add samples, you can go to your lists. Okay, they have quite an available list here of factory samples. All right, you can just scroll through those. All right, right here, this is a flute that I created. Samples of a Mellotron flute from a plugin that I have. So I created that sample and I loaded it in. So you can also create your own user samples. Huge amount of memory available for that within that, and it'll also read off a card, a SD card, or you can actually plug into the back of it a hard drive or something like that for pretty much almost a limited amount of space. So a lot to go on there with that. You can also, okay, change this. Let's see, go back to here. Let's see. Let's go to the particle again. Okay, say I don't want the just to listen to samples. I can also change the particle to a granular synthesizer, right? And that is your granular stuff. So it'll take those samples and do granular synthesis. One of my favorite things with this, I love granular synthesis. And there's a ton of different options on here. I won't go through them all. Again, look at those Iridium videos that I did if you want a deeper dive on that. And lastly, there is the kernel oscillator. We'll go back up to here. All right, that's again where you have to push 2 buttons here. All right, I think that one was here. There we go. This is the kernel oscillator. Okay, really deep on this. You generally would, think of this at first maybe an FM type synthesizer, but it can do quite a bit more. Just to quickly kind of go through what it can do, right? you would go in here to the edit screen and it'll give you the algorithm that you're working with. You can go into the individual operators and you can select their waveforms, excuse me. You can select the waveforms, okay? You can do modulations where it's doing different types of phase modulation, true modulation, I guess that's exponential, ring, amplitude, wavetable modulation. Really, really, really powerful stuff. You can select the source. You can select the amount of feedback. You can actually set an envelope for each one of those given operators, so you don't only have to use it for FM. You know, really, when you think about it, you can use these as individual operators within one engine to create a complete sound all on its own. It's basically a synth all on its own, just in this one kernel engine. The only thing that's missing, there are no filters. You can assign this to different types of modulations too. Really, really powerful and deep stuff. So those are the different types of engines that are available within the Quantum. You know, moving on, we want to move on to the mixing session. That's over here. All right, you got the 3 different mixers. You can pan them to any destination that you want. You can actually route these, okay, to different sections. Moving on to the filters, I'll show you how to do that. You do the routing. All right, you can set these to all kinds of different sections in different percentages. Say, for example, I only want the oscillator, number 1, to go to the filter, right, of number 1, right? So I could do 100% of the filter, right? But it won't go to the 3rd filter, which is actually the digital former section, and I'm going to talk to in a minute. So you can route that. You can send these in different percentages. You can bypass the oscillators, bypass this filter, excuse me, altogether with the oscillators. Do all kinds of crazy routing there in any way that you choose. You also see here in the routing, the effects section, I have it set for parallel processing. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. All right. Moving on, let's go right into the filter section with the first filter. Okay, you have basically 2 different types of filters. You have a digital filter and you have an analog filter. Within the digital filters, there are also different subtypes. Okay, when you're running, this is a little complex, when you're running the analog filter, you have 8 voices that are analog filtered. You can get up to 16 voices, but what will happen is when you overflow the analog ones, it'll go into the digital filters. You can select how that's done. Okay, let's see if I can find that. All right, so scales, layer, voices, here. You select in the layer here, okay, the voice allocation. Here I've selected that it's 16 voices. When I choose the analog filter, it's going to choose those analog filters first, and then it'll spill over into the digital. But you can make other choices. You can round robin it, you can alternate, you can hard select that it's only analog, and you can hard select that it's only digital. All right, if it's digital that you're selecting only, you get up to 16 voices. Okay, and it'll always be digital. Again, you can still get 16 voices with the analog filters. It's just when you spill over above the 8 that go to the analog, they will turn into the digital filters. Hopefully I explained that properly. All right, moving on back to the filter section. Okay, here you get so many different types. I mean, just really quick, if I wanted to switch to the digital filter, I'm looking at the analog filter here now. All right, and the graphic representation is really, really awesome. You have all this graphical representation here. But if you want to switch to the digital filters, you're going to get all these different types. The SVF, the Razor, the Largo, the Nave, the PPG, and the Quantum. That mimics the analog filter that's here. I'm not going to go through all that. Again, check out the reading and videos if you want to listen to those. All right, moving on real quick. We've got the LFO section here. All right, you can get to that here, or you can use one of these given encoders. Now, one interesting thing, kind of quirk, I think, particularly with the MKII, is that you have 3 available sections modules here for LFOs, say for example. But there are actually 6 LFOs. Same thing is true with the envelopes that we're going to talk about in a little bit. There are 3 envelopes, right? 3 envelope sets of knobs, but there are 6 envelopes. Same thing is true with the effects. There's 5 effects. There's only 3 knobs. With the MKII, I wish they had added a little button here, say for example, that you can actually use the knobs for all sets. Why they couldn't do that, I don't know, but maybe they just didn't feel that was worth the additional expense. But I would have loved to have seen that. That would have made it even more quick to use. In any event, we'll go back to the LFOs. Okay, you have, again, 6 LFOs, all kinds of different shapes. Your basic sine, square, sawtooth, saw up and down, sample and hold. You can set the speed. You can actually warp it. Okay, you can see the shape moving. Very cool. Okay, and in here, or the modulation matrix, you can set the target. Right, say for example, I want to set a target here. I've already done so in this given case. Okay, I have LFO1 going to the wavetable brilliance, and you can also go to the modulation matrix, right? And you can see that in here. Where is that? LFO1. Oh, it's going to the brilliance, and also it's being controlled by the aftertouch over and above that. Okay, moving on to the envelopes, it's pretty much kind of the same thing. Okay, you have an amp envelope, the filter 1, filter 2 envelope. Okay, the filters, I forgot to mention, there are 2 of those. Okay, they can be in series, in tandem, all different setups there. And then you have additional envelopes that are available for whatever that you choose. Okay, moving on. You have also this is the complex modulator, probably one of the coolest things on here. We'll come over here. This is so you can do, step sequencing, or I should say, a step LFO type stuff like that. So very, very powerful type thing here. You can manipulate this any way. You can actually, do some drawings. Let's see, yeah, there you go. You can draw it if you want. You can set the curve. Say, for example, this one is set to a linear, right? I can make it into a step. Okay, I can move this all different way. Cosine, body, blah, blah, blah. All kinds of different ways to set this up to make a very complex LFO. Another really, really powerful thing here. All right, where are we moving next here? We want to go to the effects section. And I'm moving a little fast because, again, I'm just trying to create a basic overview. You have 5 effects slots. You can select different routings for these. This is really, really cool. All right, here I have the chorus being split to the delay into the reverb, and this allows me to have the delay not being fed into the reverb so it doesn't get overpowering there. So that's really cool. Lots of different types of effects. Let's see here. All right, you've got the tremolo, phaser, chorus, delay, reverb, EQ, and drive. And you have the compressor, which also has a control here. Now, one thing about the effects, I would say, that maybe Third Wave has a little bit over it, is there's only really one type of delay. There's no BBD delay. This is just a digital type of delay, which sounds really, really good on itself, but there aren't other, types. The same is true, say, with reverb. Okay, you just have one type of reverb. There isn't a spring reverb, a plate, or a cloud reverb, which I think would really, really be great for the Quantum. Now, I just want to again touch on the modulation matrix. Go back to that. All right, you've got a huge number of slots. It would be a challenge for anyone to fill up all these slots. Okay, you got 40 slots. That is a challenge for any sound designer. All the different slots to fill. And one of the really nice things with this is that when you set a slot, you'll see I've done this quite often here, right? Let's go to one of these. Like I mentioned before, I have LFO1 modulating the brilliance of the wavetable, right? So we go over here. the wavetable does is this parameter over here, right? And you'll see it's highlighted in yellow, showing that there is a modulation. But also, I've set it to where the aftertouch down here, okay, is going to add to that modulation whenever I use it. So it's double powerful, I guess you could say. All right, well, that's all I really have for the Quantum MKII. This is, a dream synth, in my opinion, and it complements really, really well with what the third wave does. They sound different, and I'm going to show you some sound samples in a moment. real quick, I just want to talk about the pros and cons as they may mean something to you. And really, like I said in the beginning of the video, it's all about what you want out of these synthesizers. The third wave is more of a hands-on, knob for function, almost character style synthesizer. All right, it's meant to have a certain sound, a certain characteristic, and it does that in spades. The Quantum, okay, is a jack of all trades synthesizer, and unlike most jack of all trades, that are master of none, this is a master of almost everything, and it is really super powerful for that. And it's just a luxury to be able to have all that power in your hand. Now, that said, your approach to synthesizers and your experience may determine which is best for you. Third wave is generally a simpler synthesizer. It's generally a lot more simple to get going with it and get moving with it and understand what's going on with it. With the Quantum, you really need to deep into it, get understanding of what's going on. Some of the more advanced styles of synthesis, such as the resonator and or the kernel engine, they take a lot of time to really kind of understand and wrap your head around. So that may or may not be good for you. You may decide you never use them. I know some people never use those types of, parts of the synthesizer, those engines per se. But, if you don't, you're kind of just only getting so much out of it and scratching the surface. The Quantum really has a lot of that. It's not quite as hands-on. There's more menu diving and some other things like that, more navigation, involved than you would find here with the third wave. So again, it's just a choice of which one that you like to integrate with and which sound that you really want to go for. All right, you've made it this far. Thank you so much. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to create a simple pad sound on both these synths, okay, so that you can see for yourself the workflow. I'm not really going to try to make them sound alike. They don't sound alike anyway, but not really going to try to make them sound alike more. I'm just interested in showing you how you may be able to approach these synthesizers. All right, I'm going to work fast to try to keep the video as short as possible, but I will explain as I go. All right, let's create a little pad sound so you can see the workflow here on the Quantum. All right, first thing I probably want to do is I want to create an initialized patch. So I'll go to load here and I hit init. All right, and usually what I do with all my synths is I like to save that into an empty slot first. That prevents me from accidentally overwriting something. All right, so I'm going to save that to an empty slot number. All right, let's see, I know this one is an empty one. 3106, return, I'm going to name it. Let's see, we'll name it patter. I'll speed this part up in the video. All right, now I have my sound saved. I'm going to go to oscillator 1, and I'm going to stick with the wavetable. It's just a simple sine wave right now, right? But what I can do is I can start making it go through that wavetable by using the travel. That's one way. There's other ways, but we're going to use the travel. Let me let you hear that. So now it travels through that wavetable. I'm going to make it slower because we want to have a nice gooey kind of pad sound. All right, oops, that's not what I'm looking for. Here we are, 3D. Here we go. All right, travel, here we are. So we want to have it a little slower. There, it goes through that. I'm going to select a different wavetable though. Let's try the pulse sweep, right? Or how about the square sweep? All right, that's very, very nice. That's a good place to start. There's some other things that I can do. I can change it to either limit to the one end or the other, or I could wrap around. I think I'm just going to leave that like that. Let's go over to the spectrum. All right, you can change that here. These are the other hand. All right, I can assign that to a modulation, right? So let me assign that to, say, an LFO, right? I can hit the mod, go to modulations, right? You could do it here, or it's usually just easier to go right to the mod matrix. It selects that already as a destination, all right? And I'm going to make that LFO1, all right? So I'm going to make the amount here. I can do it over here. And I'm going to make that LFO1. So I'm going to select LFO1 as a source over here. All right. And then I'm going to put a little bit of an amount because a little is a lot when it comes to modulations. All right, it's like a Farfisa. That's kind of cool. Maybe I ought to slow it down. I can go to LFO1 here. You'll see with the mod targets selected, it'll show that. All right, and I can slow down the speed here. All right, I think that's a little bit much, so I want to actually reduce the amount just a little bit. That's nice. It gives a little bit of extra touch to that. All right, let's go back to the oscillator here. Look again at the 3D. Okay, let's see here. We can change the travel. We already done that. We got the keys track. We'll give it a little bit of brilliance. All right. All right. Now here, the modes, we can change it from just the normal, the cleanest sounding mode to the legacy mode, which is more like the old style PPG, somewhat similar to the third wave. Or harsh or dirty. I'm going to leave it to the legacy mode, all right, and I can have it stepped a little bit. So it's not interpolating between the different steps of the wavetable. All right, I'm going to leave that as my first oscillator. Now, one cool thing I can do is I can go to oscillator 2. Okay, you see it's blank because I haven't selected which one I want. I'm going to go to the wavetable again. I'm going to go to the tools, and I'm going to copy oscillator 1 to oscillator 2. So I copy that from here. All right, turn it up. Go back here, and of course you've got to, let's see, back to picks and tools. So you got to detune them. Because, you know, you're always detune your oscillators, right? Sure. All right, starting to sound like something. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the timbre of number 2, and I'm going to change it, that wavetable, to something different. Let's go with the pulse sweep. And maybe it's something else here. Let's go with the mellow saw. Okay, I like that. All right. All right, I'm going to leave that alone as the basis of my sound. I'm going to go to oscillator number 3, and I'm going to make that a waveform. Okay, I'm going to leave it as the saw, but I'm going to turn it down an octave so I can get a nice sub-octave with this. Turn it up in the mix a little bit. All right, turn it down just a little. Turn those up. All right, go back to here, to oscillator 3. It's showing the mix now. We can go back to the timbre. Now I can actually add some what are known as kernels here. You're basically just duplicating it, making it more like a super saw. So if I add this up here, let me hear that. All right, so now I have 3 duplications, 3 kernels of that, and they are detuned. All right, that's a nice basis of the sound that I am looking for. I want to move over here to the filters now. All right, let's see. And the filter envelope. That amp envelope. nice. It's starting to sound like something, right? All right. We go back to the filters here. That is just with a single 12 dB low pass filter. That is the analog filter. I'm going to change the spread so it's actually strong. You get a nice wide sound out of that. Okay. Raise the key tracking so it tracks the there. Alright, give it a little resonance. I can do that here or here. Nice thing about that. Alright, and instead of just the single filter, I can have two filters going at once, analog filter, analog 2. I like the escaping one, right? Much more stronger effect. Let me reduce the cutoff and the envelope amount. A little bit more there. Alright, turn it down a little bit. Alright. So that gives me a nice basis of sound. Now, if you go to the routing here, you'll see that all three oscillators are going into both filters. The next filter is called the digital former. Okay, I'm going to go into that, and I'm going to select for the ring modulation, because we all like ring modulation. Since, alright, and I'm going to give it the least amount, just a little bit, because a little bit is a lot. To give it a little bit of tremolo effect. That sounds nice, okay? I like that. Next, let's go into the effects. So we can move quickly here. Gotta have some chorus on the pad, right? Alright, I'll change the routing. So it's a parallel routing. Alright, you see the chorus is being split on the output. Alright, to parallel routing. So on FX2, I'm going to put on a delay, and an FX4 on the other routing, I'm going to put in some reverb. So here's some delay. All right, let's make it nice and long. And on 4, we're going to have some reverb. There we go. And make that nice and long. A little bit of cross fading, make it a little bit darker. That's really, really nice. Of course, I want to keep saving as I go. I want to save that. All right, now, next thing I want to do, that's nice, but I want to add a little bit of modulation to that, right? So we go over to the modulation matrix, and there's several ways to get to this, but I'm going this way here. You want to set the LFO, I don't know, let's say LFO 2, since we already used LFO 1. All right, and I want to set that to the pitch. All right, and I'm going to raise that up just a little bit. Now the other thing I want to do, a couple other things. Let's raise that up a little bit more. And I want to set the controller as aftertouch. So not only will it just do it on its own, it'll have the chance to give it a little bit more when I use the polyphonic aftertouch. And I'll raise that controller up here. All right, now I'm going to go to the second LFO, change that to a triangle. Okay, and I'm going to slowly attack on that so it doesn't come in right away. So with the polyphonic aftertouch, I can actually add a little bit more in there to make it some more spicy stuff. All right, let's see here. Go back to the effects. All right, I'll go here, see this again. Oh, I have accidentally turned that off. Let's turn that back on for the delay. There we go. All right. A lovely little pad sound. All right, let's look at the workflow on the third wave and create our little pad sound. Diving right in, the first thing I always like to do in all my synths when I create a new sound is I want to save it. All right, so I'm going to create an initialized patch, okay? All right, and then I want to save it, all right? Good practice to get into. I'm going to move it to a slot that I know. All right, so over here, 51 is a factory patch. I can always get that back, so I'll save it to there. And let's see, let's clear this out and I'll give it a name. I'll speed this up in the video. All right, I called it Patty. I couldn't think of anything else. Anyway, let's start with the first oscillator. I'm going to turn these two down, okay? You've got this, let's say, at a level just below 100. All right, if you remember correctly, if all the oscillators add up to greater than 100, it will start to distort the mixer. All right, but I want to start there. All right, the factoring one selects the wavetable number 15. I don't know what the reason is why, but I'm going to stay with that. All right, and the first thing I probably want to do is I want to go to that given wave envelope. All right, so you hear it cycling through that. Let's change that a little bit, okay? Raise the time on that. There, here. All right, raise the position. Go to the second level. Time, position. All right, number 5. And the time here on number 6. All right, go back to number 1. All right, raise the position on that, right? All right, now that's oscillator number 1. I can actually copy that to all 3 oscillators. I'm going to do that, right, just for the purposes of demonstration. Okay, and you see here when you do this, you see it changing here. It'll say which one you're actually editing by the one that is highlighted, right? So if I want to only just make certain adjustments to number 2, I'm going to leave that one highlighting, and it'll say that you're viewing number 2 and editing number 2. So let's say, for example, I want to make a little bit of changes here. I want to increase the time here, all right? And I want to lower the position here, all right? Make that a little bit like that. Okay, and maybe I want to just do something slightly different with the third oscillator. I'll make it actually a little bit faster. All right, go to number 4. Okay, number 5. All right, now when I have them all turned back up, all right, I'm going to have, let's see, it's a little above the levels, a little above 100, just so I get a little bit of extra harmonics from the overriding of the levels. Okay, now I can change the different wavetables on the different oscillators to get even a little bit more variance. And I'm just going to pick stuff at random for the purposes of this video. And I'm going to detune oscillators 1 and 2. Okay. All right, leave that in the center. Okay, let's take the pitch on oscillator 3. I'll make that into a sub-octave. So down 12. So that's nice. That's how you set up the wavetables on the 3 oscillators, right? Now let's just say I don't want to use the wavetable on the third one. Maybe I want to actually use the VA synthesis. Maybe I just want to use a triangle wave. That might sound nice with this. All right, so I'm going to go up to here. You'll see me changing it here, or you can change it here as well. So there's 2 ways to skin this cat on the third wave. That's cool. All right, there's my triangle wave. Okay, now let's just say for that triangle wave, I want to make it a little bit more, interesting with some vibrato. Okay, so I'm going to go to LFO1 here. All right, I'm going to assign that to the destination of number 3, increase the rate, and just give it a little bit of an amount, little bit. All right, sounds like a dead fish or something. I'm going to increase the rate more. And just a little bit down. All right, next thing I might want to do is I want to go into the miscellaneous here, okay, and I can add the circuit drift. You'll see that here. So take that out to about just under 60. That's a little about halfway. And I'll turn on the free running oscillators. Now that only is going to affect oscillator number 3, which is our VA oscillator, the triangle. Okay, let's move on to the filters and see what we can get there. The first filter is the state variable filter, okay? I'm going to leave that alone just for now. I'm going to go right through the next one in series, which is the low pass filter. I'm going to add a little bit of saturation. So you hear that? Not too much. Lower the cutoff. And add the envelope. There we go. Slowly attack, bring up the sustain, decay, release. Do the same with the VCA, the amp envelope. All right. All right. This is the spread here, and lower the volume a little bit. I think I got a little bit of distortion in the camera there. I'm sorry for that. Okay. All right, that's starting to sound kind of nice for what's there. All right, now I'm going to take the state variable filter. I'm going to put it on band pass here. All right, mode. I'm going to put the cutoff right in the center, increase the resonance, okay, and then I'm going to actually use an LFO to affect that. All right, let's get the rate a little bit much here. Leave it on the triangle shape and set the destination for the state variable cutoff. There we are. Let's see what that does. Alright, I got to turn the amount up. That would help. Give you an idea what it's going to sound like, but I don't want it nearly as much as that, so. Gives it a nice effect, okay? Let's go to the other one here, and I want to hit the miscellaneous because I want to key track it. That's the right thing to do for a nice pad sound. Turn that up. Just a little bit more. All right, so that's giving me something nice to start with. We've got both our filters in. We've got the envelope for the amp and the filter, excuse me. Let's see what else we can do. I want to use that other filter, the LFO2. You see the rate and the amount there. I want to assign that to an envelope so it increases a little bit as it goes. So I have envelope number 3. Give that just a little bit of a classic shape. Okay. Set the destination. I want to set the destination to the amount of LFO2. Okay. And we can do that right over here. LFO2 amount, you'll see it up here. That's the frequency. And then the amount, all right? And then we want to change, the destination, and then we want to increase the amount just a little bit. So. That attack a little bit longer. Got a nice something there. Again, I'm just trying to give you an idea of the workflow. We're not going to make this as pretty as I probably could. All right, so I'm going to move on to the effects. Before I do that, let me show you the sources and destinations. I think I showed you this before. But again, when you come down here to the bottom, and I did all the fixed ones, so they're already set here at the bottom with their given amounts. Okay, just for giggles, I'll set the pressure destination here. I'm going to set it to the resonance on the low pass filter. So you'll see it change here. Or if I want to, I could just hold destination and tickle that, and it'll come up. And I can raise that up. All right. Get it up a lot so you can hear it. Hear it pretty good there. Reduce the cutoff a little bit and raise the envelope. So you can hear a little bit of that resonance coming in and out. Remember, this is channel aftertouch. It's not a polyphonic aftertouch. Let's go into the effects now. All right, I want to put in a phaser here. Nice deep sounding phaser. Next, there's the Hall. All right, let's try the super plate. All right. Alright, now let's hit the mix on the phaser down a little bit. You can either do that here or you can do that up here. It's great. Okay, and then raise the mix here on effect 2. Okay, if you remember, effect 2 is the super plate. Raise the mix here. Okay, see what that sounds like. Awesome. Don't forget to save. There we go. All right. There we go. Let's see. Yep. We want to go back. Okay, there we go. I double clicked there. All right, well, that's all I have for you. The Groove Synthesis Third Wave Waldorf Quantum MKII, 2 amazing synthesizers. I hope I've helped you make a decision between one or the other if you are trying to decide. If you're lucky enough, you'll find that both of these do complement each other and there's room for both of them. So you may decide to do that as well. I want to thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. If you like it, please do subscribe. If you haven't done so already, check out tjontheroad.com and make sure you check out my new album, Exposition. That's up on there. Thanks so much, and I will see you next time.